The morning sun beat down on Bangkok's crowded streets as Keanu Reeves slipped on a pair of well-worn sunglasses. He had been in Thailand for 3 weeks now, filming the latest installment of the John Wick series, and the schedule was grueling. Today was his first real day off, and instead of lounging by the hotel pool like most of the crew, Keanu had other plans. "You sure about this?" asked Mike, his longtime stunt coordinator, as their taxi weaved through the busy traffic. "These traditional gyms can be pretty intense." Keanu nodded, watching the city blur past the window. "That's exactly why I want to go. We've got that big fight scene next week. I need to see the real thing, not just our choreographed version." The taxi pulled up to a small side street in a neighborhood far from the tourist areas. No gleaming high-rises here, just worn concrete buildings with faded paint and hand-painted signs. The gym, if you could call it that, was tucked between a noodle shop and a small convenience store. A weathered sign reading, "Sit the Harnik Muay Thai," hung above a narrow entrance. "This is it," Mike said, checking his phone map. Supposedly, one of the most authentic gyms in the city. Been training champions since the 1970s. As they stepped inside, the sounds hit them first. The rhythmic slap of bare feet on canvas, the thud of fists and shins against heavy bags, the sharp calls of trainers giving instructions. The air was thick with humidity, despite the fans spinning overhead, carrying the smell of sweat and liniment oil. This wasn't one of those polished tourist gyms. This was the real deal. A group of young fighters trained in a ring at the center, while others worked on bags hung along the walls. Everyone moved with purpose, their bodies honed from years of training. Keanu stood quietly, observing the techniques, mentally cataloging movements he might incorporate into his character. An older man approached them, his face weathered like old leather, with cauliflower ears and a nose that had been broken more than once. Deep scars crossed his eyebrows. He wore faded shorts and a t-shirt that had seen better days, but he carried himself with the unmistakable confidence of someone who had spent decades mastering his craft. "You want lesson?" he asked in simple English, looking them up and down with a skeptical eye. 2,000 baht for foreigners. 1 hour. Mike stepped forward. "My friend here is interested in learning some authentic techniques. He's working on a film." The trainer's eyes narrowed slightly at the mention of a film. He looked at Keanu more carefully but showed no sign of recognition. In his plain black t-shirt and cargo pants, hair tied back in a casual bun, Keanu hardly resembled his on-screen persona. "I am Somchai," the trainer said, tapping his chest. "Head trainer here for 30 years. What film you make?" "Action film," Keanu replied simply, not wanting to draw attention. The last thing he needed was fans showing up asking for autographs. Somchai grunted. "Hollywood action, not real fighting. All jumping, spinning. Very pretty, very fake." He made an exaggerated spinning kick gesture and rolled his eyes. Keanu smiled patiently. He'd heard this criticism before. "That's why I'm here. I want to see the real thing." Somchai seemed surprised by the humble response. "Okay. You watch first, then we see if you can try." For the next half hour, Keanu and Mike stood at the edge of the training area, observing. The skill level was impressive. Young fighters, some looking no older than 16, moved with deadly precision. Their shins, hardened from years of conditioning, cracked against pads with sounds that made Mike wince. "Those guys have been training since they were kids," Mike whispered. "This isn't something you pick up in a few months of pre-production training." Keanu nodded. He knew. For the John Wick films, he had trained for years, working with experts in judo, jiu-jitsu, gun fu, and various weapons disciplines. While he would never claim to be at the level of these lifelong practitioners, he had developed genuine skill through thousands of hours of dedicated practice. Somchai returned, wiping sweat from his brow after working with one of his fighters. "You still want to try?" "I'd appreciate that," Keanu replied. "Change clothes first." Somchai pointed to a small side room. "Shorts only, no shoes." In the cramped changing room, Keanu stripped down to his workout shorts. Mike looked concerned. "You sure about this, man? These guys don't play around. Keanu shrugged. I'll be fine. Just want to learn a few things, feel the rhythm of it. When they returned to the main area, they noticed several of the younger trainers glancing their way, nudging each other. One seemed to be showing something on his phone to another, both looking back at Keanu with widening eyes. But Somchai remained unimpressed, focused entirely on the training session ahead. We start with basic stance, Somchai said, moving to an open area on the mats. The floor was worn smooth from years of bare feet sliding across its surface. Many tourists come, want to learn flying elbow, spinning kick first thing. Not how it works. First, you must stand right. Keanu nodded, taking the stance Somchai demonstrated, weight evenly distributed, hands up to protect the face, elbows in to guard the ribs. Good, Somchai said, sounding mildly surprised. Now basic punches. They worked through jabs, crosses, hooks, and uppercuts. Somchai corrected small details in Keanu's form, but his eyebrows raised slightly at how quickly the actor adjusted. There was a foundation there that he hadn't expected. You trained before? Somchai said. It wasn't a question. Some, Keanu replied modestly. For movie? Yes, for a few films. Somchai made a dismissive sound. Movie fighting, he said with a wave of his hand. Now try to hit me. Keanu looked uncertain. You want me to actually throw punches at you? Yes, not tag, real punch, I block counter. You defend, this how you learn. Somchai put up his hands in a defensive position. Don't worry, you won't hurt me. There was a challenge in the trainer's voice, an undercurrent of condescension that suggested he saw Keanu as just another soft Hollywood type playing at being tough. The younger trainers had stopped what they were doing to watch, forming a loose circle around them. Keanu sighed internally. He hadn't come here to prove anything, but it seemed like that was where this was heading. He settled into his stance and began throwing combinations. Nothing fancy, just basic punches with proper form. Somchai blocked easily, nodding. Okay, not bad form, now more power, don't be afraid. Keanu increased the intensity slightly, still holding back. The last thing he wanted was to cause problems or worse, injure someone. Somchai's expression hardened. This not dancing. In real fight, you hit like this, you lose. He suddenly stepped forward and threw a lightning-fast combination that stopped just short of contact. The message was clear. Step it up or step aside. The gym had grown quieter. More people were watching. Now, Keanu could feel the shift in atmosphere. What had started as a casual training session was turning into something else. A test, perhaps even a challenge to his legitimacy. Again, Somchai commanded. And this time, fight like man, not actor. Mike shifted uncomfortably at the edge of the mats. Keanu, maybe we should... It's fine, Keanu said quietly. He understood what was happening. This was about respect. In a traditional gym like this, respect wasn't given freely. It was earned. He reset his stance, took a deep breath, and engaged again. This time he didn't hold back quite as much, letting muscle memory from thousands of hours of training take over. His punches came faster, with more precision. When Somchai countered, Keanu slipped the strikes with practiced ease. A flicker of surprise crossed Somchai's face. He hadn't expected this level of skill. The trainer increased his own intensity, throwing a hard elbow that Keanu barely blocked. Better, Somchai said, a new edge in his voice. Now we try kick. The session escalated. What had begun as basic drills was quickly becoming a spirited sparring match. Somchai demonstrated traditional Muay Thai techniques, devastating roundhouse kicks, sharp knees, slashing elbows, and expected Keanu to defend against them. Keanu held his own, drawing on his years of training. He wasn't matching Somchai's technical proficiency in Muay Thai specifically, but his overall combat awareness was impressive. The younger trainers were whispering now, phones out, a few recording video. Somchai's expression changed from dismissive to focused. He was no longer just demonstrating, he was testing. A particularly hard kick thumped against Keanu's thigh, sure to leave a bruise. Keanu winced, but maintained his composure. In movie, you say cut when it hurt, Somchai said with a challenging smile. In real fight, no cut. No cut, Keanu agreed, his voice calm despite the growing intensity. One of the younger trainers approached Somchai, showing him something on his phone. Somchai glanced at it, then back at Keanu with narrowed eyes. The younger man was pointing at the screen excitedly, speaking rapid Thai. Somchai waved him away. Enough distraction. Now we see what Hollywood fighter really made of. He turned back to Keanu, a new determination in his stance. The atmosphere in the gym had changed completely. Everyone was watching now. Something was building. A confrontation. Neither Keanu nor Mike had anticipated when they walked through the door earlier that morning. Mike stepped closer to the edge of the mat, concern written across his face. Keanu, he called out in warning. But Keanu was focused now too. He hadn't come looking for this, but sometimes life threw unexpected challenges your way. And deep down, a small part of him, the part that had spent years becoming John Wick, was curious to see how he would fare. Somchai circled, his experienced eyes looking for weaknesses. Show me, he said simply. Show me what they teach you in Hollywood. And with that, the real test began. The gym fell into a hushed silence as Somchai and Keanu faced each other on the worn training mats. The ceiling fans whirred overhead, pushing around the hot, humid air without really cooling anything. Sweat already glistened on both men's skin, though the real workout hadn't even begun. Somchai's eyes narrowed as he sized up his opponent. In movie, camera make you look good. Cut, 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 try again until perfect. Real fighting not like this. Keanu nodded respectfully. I understand. No, you don't understand, Somchai said, moving forward with surprising speed for a man in his 50s. But you will. He threw a lightning-fast jab that Keanu barely slipped past. The actor's reflexes kicked in, thousands of hours of training taking over as he weaved away from the punch. Somchai nodded slightly, perhaps impressed that Keanu had avoided the strike, but his expression quickly hardened again. Lucky, he muttered, circling to his left. Mike watched nervously from the edge of the mat, hands clenched at his sides. This wasn't what they had come for. They'd wanted to observe authentic techniques, maybe learn a few moves for the upcoming film sequence, not get pulled into what was starting to feel like a real fight. He caught Keanu's eye, raising his eyebrows, in a silent question. Should we leave? Keanu gave a subtle shake of his head. He understood what was happening. This was a test, a way for the old trainer to protect his territory and his traditions. Walking away now would only confirm Somchai's belief that Hollywood fighters were just playing at combat, not truly committed to the art. Somchai moved in, again, this time throwing a hard low kick that caught Keanu on the outside of his thigh. The impact made a dull, thwacking sound that echoed through the gym. Keanu winced but held his ground. In Thailand, we condition legs for years, Somchai said, tapping his own shin, which felt as hard as bamboo. Your legs soft like tourist. Instead of responding, Keanu reset his stance. His thigh burned where the kick had landed, but he'd taken worse hits during his training for the films. The key now was to show respect while still standing his ground. Around them, the other trainers and fighters had formed a loose circle. Some were openly recording with their phones now. The younger trainer who had tried to show Somchai something earlier was whispering excitedly to his friends, occasionally pointing at Keanu. Somchai threw another combination, jab, cross, low, kick, moving with the fluid grace of someone who had spent decades honing his craft. Keanu blocked the punches but took another hard kick to the same spot on his thigh. You learned a check kick, Somchai instructed, demonstrating the proper defensive technique by raising his own leg, like this. Otherwise, after a few more kicks, you cannot stand. Keanu nodded, adjusting his stance. When Somchai threw the next kick, Keanu raised his leg to block it, shin against shin. The impact hurt, a lot, but he kept his face neutral. Better, Somchai acknowledged, a hint of approval in his voice, but then his expression hardened again. Now you attack. Show me what Hollywood teach you. Keanu hesitated. He hadn't come here to show off or challenge anyone. But it was clear now that Somchai wouldn't be satisfied until he saw what Keanu could do. The actor took a deep breath and began to move. He started with basic combinations, nothing flashy, just solid fundamentals. Jab, cross, hook, step in, knee strike. He kept his power controlled, not trying to hurt Somchai but showing that he understood proper technique. Somchai blocked easily, nodding slightly. Not bad form, but no power. In real fight, need power. The older trainer suddenly countered with a hard elbow strike that Keanu barely managed to block. The force of it sent him back a step, and he felt the sting even through his forearm guard. See power, Somchai said, tapping his elbow. Without power, just dancing. The challenge in his voice was unmistakable. He wanted Keanu to step it up, to show what he was really capable of. The crowd around them had grown, with people from the street now peering in through the open doors of the gym, drawn by the unusual spectacle. Mike took a step forward. Maybe we should... It's okay, Keanu said quietly, not taking his eyes off Somchai. He understood what was happening. This wasn't just about technique anymore. It was about heart, about proving he respected the art enough to fully engage with it. He reset his stance and moved in again, this time with more purpose. He threw a combination with greater speed and power, ending with a roundhouse kick that Somchai had to make a real effort to block. A flicker of surprise crossed the trainer's face. Better, he said, his voice carrying a new note of respect. Again. They continued like this for several minutes, the intensity gradually increasing. What had started as a simple demonstration was evolving into something more like real sparring. Keanu was careful not to use specific moves that were too distinctively John Wick, the gun kata techniques, the distinctive grappling throws. But he couldn't help drawing on the foundation of skills he'd built over years of training for the role. Somchai landed another hard leg kick, and this time Keanu felt his leg starting to give. The repeated strikes to the same spot were taking their toll. In a real fight, this was exactly what a Muay Thai fighter would do, systematically destroy their opponent's mobility before moving in for the finish. Your leg hurt now, Somchai observed, not unkindly. This is real fighting. Find way to keep going. Keanu nodded, shifting his weight to protect his injured leg. He'd have a massive bruise tomorrow, but right now he needed to adapt. He began moving more, using footwork, to create space and angles rather than standing directly in front of Somchai. The older trainer nodded approvingly. Good. Adjust. Find solution. Their exchange continued, a mixture of technique demonstration and increasingly serious sparring. Keanu landed a solid body kick that made Somchai grunt in surprise. The older man nodded, acknowledging the clean strike. Where you learn that? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice for the first time. I had a good teacher, Keanu replied simply. The younger trainer, who had been trying to show Somchai something on his phone earlier, finally pushed forward, unable to contain himself any longer. Teacher, he called out in accented English, holding up his phone. Look, this him, John Wick. He turned the screen toward Somchai, showing what appeared to be a clip from one of the films. Several other trainers crowded around, pointing and exclaiming in Thai. Somchai glanced at the phone, then back at Keanu, his eyes narrowing. This you? He asked skeptically. Before Keanu could answer, the door to the gym burst open and a group of tourists rushed in, phones already out and recording. Word had somehow spread that Keanu Reeves was at the local Muay Thai gym. It's him, one of them shouted. It's really him. Mike immediately moved to intercept them, his security training kicking in. Folks, please give us some space. But the damage was done. The quiet, authentic experience they had hoped for was quickly dissolving into chaos. Phones flashed from every direction as people tried to capture the unexpected celebrity encounter. Somchai looked confused, glancing between Keanu and the excited crowd. What happening? One of the younger trainers leaned in, speaking rapidly, in Thai and gesturing toward Keanu. Somchai's expression changed from confusion to disbelief, as he seemed to finally understand who he had been sparring with. "You... actor?" he asked, pointing at Keanu. "Yes," Keanu admitted with a slight nod. "Big movie star?" Somchai pressed, making expansive gestures with his hands to indicate something of great size or importance. Keanu shrugged modestly. "I've been in some films people seem to like." The younger trainer was still talking excitedly, showing Somchai more clips on his phone. The older man's eyes widened as he watched, occasionally glancing up at Keanu as if seeing him for the first time. Meanwhile, the crowd at the door was growing. Mike was doing his best to keep people from swarming into the gym, but it was a losing battle. This quiet training session had somehow turned into an impromptu meet and greet. "We should probably go," Mike called over to Keanu, struggling to hold back the growing crowd. Keanu nodded, turning to Somchai. "Thank you for the lesson," he said sincerely, offering a traditional wide gesture of respect, hands pressed together, slight bow of the head. Somchai stood there for a moment, seemingly torn between his initial dismissiveness and the new information he was processing. Finally, he returned the gesture, though his expression remained guarded. "You fight..." "Not bad," he conceded, which from him seemed like high praise. "For actor." As Keanu turned to leave, navigating through the crowd with Mike running interference, Somchai called after him. "Tomorrow," the trainer shouted above the noise. "Come back tomorrow, early, before tourists." Keanu paused, looking back. "Tomorrow?" Somchai nodded firmly. "Much to learn still, if you serious." Their eyes met across the crowded gym. The veteran trainer who had spent his life perfecting his art, and the actor who had dedicated himself to portraying a fighter with genuine authenticity. An understanding passed between them, transcending the initial misconceptions. "I'll be here," Keanu replied with a slight smile. As they finally pushed through the crowd to the street outside, Mike looked at Keanu with a mixture of concern and amusement. "You sure about coming back? That guy wasn't exactly going easy on you." Keanu touched his thigh, which was already starting to swell from the repeated kicks. It would be black and blue by morning, no doubt. But there was also a gleam in his eyes that those who knew him well would recognize. The look he got when he found something genuine, something worth pursuing. "Yeah," he said simply. "I'm sure." Behind them they could hear Somchai shouting at the crowd in Thai, trying to restore order to his gym. Through the open door, Keanu caught a glimpse of the older trainer looking his way, a new question in his eyes. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. The next morning arrived with the kind of sticky heat that blankets Bangkok before the sun has fully risen. Keanu winced as he climbed out of the taxi, his thigh stiff and bruised from yesterday's training session. He'd spent the evening with ice packs and pain relievers, trying to manage the swelling. "You sure about this?" Mike asked, climbing out. Behind him. "We could find a different gym. One where the trainer doesn't try to take your head off." Keanu shook his head. "No, there was something real about yesterday, something honest." It was barely 6 a.m. and the street was already coming to life. Food vendors set up their carts, the smell of frying garlic and chilies filling the air. Shop owners swept the sidewalks in front of their businesses. But unlike yesterday, there were no crowds of fans or tourists waiting outside the gym. Somchai had been smart to suggest an early session. The gym door was propped open with a brick, the inside dimly lit compared to the brightening day outside. As they stepped in, Keanu saw Somchai was already there, wrapping his hands with long strips of cotton. He looked up as they entered, his face revealing nothing. "You came," he said simply. "I said I would," Keanu replied. Somchai nodded, as if confirming something to himself. He finished wrapping his hands and stood up. "Yesterday, too many people, too much..." He waved his hand, searching for the word. "Excitement. Not good for training." "I'm sorry about that," Keanu said. "Not your fault." Somchai shrugged. "Famous person problems." He studied Keanu for a moment. "Your leg, how bad?" Keanu touched his thigh. It's fine. Somchai's eyes narrowed. He reached out suddenly and pressed his fingers into Keanu's thigh right where the worst bruise was forming. Keanu couldn't help but flinch. Not fine, Somchai said. But there was no mockery in his voice now, just professional assessment. We work around different techniques today. He walked to a cabinet at the back of the gym and returned with a small glass bottle. Tiger Balm, special formula. My teacher make it, better than store kind. The balm smelled strongly of camphor and cloves, with other scents Keanu couldn't identify. Somchai applied it to the bruised area with practiced hands, the pressure firm but careful. This helped with pain, helped blood flow, he explained. 20 minutes. You feel better. The gym was peaceful in the early morning light. A few other trainers were setting up for the day, hanging fresh bags and checking equipment. But there were no students yet. It was a far cry from the chaotic scene yesterday. As they waited for the balm to work, Somchai sat on a nearby bench, gesturing for Keanu to join him. So, John Wick, he said, pronouncing the name carefully. My nephew showed me movies last night. All of them. Very late. He rubbed his eyes, suggesting he hadn't gotten much sleep. What did you think? Keanu asked, genuinely curious. Somchai considered the question. Fighting, better than most movies. Still Hollywood, but he made a so-so gesture with his hand. Not terrible. Coming from him, this seemed like high praise. But you, Somchai continued, looking directly at Keanu now. You train hard for these movies. Real training, not just pretty dancing. It wasn't a question, but Keanu nodded anyway. For the first film, I trained for about 4 months, for the sequels longer. Different styles, judo, jiu-jitsu, tactical shooting. I see this in your movement, Somchai said. Yesterday I think you just some actor playing tough guy, but you have. He tapped his chest. Foundation, real understanding. I try, Keanu said modestly. But I know I'm not a real fighter, not like you or your students. Somchai shook his head. Different paths. My fighters, they train since children, fight for money, for family. You train for different reason, but training is training. He stood up, testing Keanu's leg with another press of his fingers. Better now? We start slow. They moved to the center of the gym. Unlike yesterday, Somchai's approach was different, more instructional, less confrontational. He began breaking down specific Muay Thai techniques, explaining the philosophy behind them. Western boxing, mostly hands, he demonstrated throwing quick punches. Muay Thai, 8 limbs. He showed strikes with fists, elbows, knees, and feet. Whole body weapon. Keanu absorbed everything, asking questions, trying techniques, and adapting when his injured leg limited his movement. Somchai proved to be a surprisingly patient teacher when not trying to prove a point. In movies you do this, Somchai said, mimicking an elaborate spinning kick. Looks good on camera. In real fight? He shook his head. Too slow, too much energy. Real fight. Simple is deadly. He demonstrated a basic elbow strike. Short, brutal, and efficient. This break nose, cut face. Not fancy. Works. As they trained, other students began to arrive. Word had clearly spread about their famous visitor, and the gym filled faster than usual. But Somchai kept them at bay with sharp commands in Thai. This was a serious training session, not a photo opportunity. One of the younger trainers approached, cautiously, speaking to Somchai in Thai. Somchai listened, then turned to Keanu. Pai wants to ask about scene in movie, the one with pencil. Keanu smiled slightly, recognizing the reference to one of John Wick's most infamous moments. What about it? The young trainer, Pai, spoke hesitantly in broken English. Is possible? Kill man with pencil? Mike, who had been quietly observing, from the side stifled a laugh. Keanu considered the question seriously. With enough training and the right circumstances, maybe. But it's definitely exaggerated for the film. Pai nodded thoughtfully, then demonstrated a lightning-fast stabbing motion with his hand. I add to my fighting. Good surprise technique. Somchai rolled his eyes but didn't scold the younger man. Instead, he redirected the conversation. In film, you fight many people at once. How you train for this? Choreography, Keanu explained. We plan every move, practice for weeks. Sometimes it takes days to film a fight that lasts minutes on screen. Show me, Somchai said, gesturing to 3 of his trainers. You against them. Slow movement, like practice. The trainers stepped forward, looking uncertain but excited. Keanu hesitated. I don't want to waste your time with movie stuff. Not waste, Somchai insisted. Different knowledge. We learn from each other. Keanu nodded and took a position in the center as the 3 trainers surrounded him. He began to demonstrate how a typical John Wick fight sequence would be choreographed, moving at quarter speed, explaining each decision. I would engage the closest threat first, he said, turning to one trainer and mimicking a disarm and takedown. Then use his body as a shield, he continued, positioning the first trainer between himself and the second. Create distance, deal with each attacker in sequence rather than all at once. Somchai watched with surprising interest, occasionally stopping them to ask questions or suggest alternatives based on Muay Thai principles. What had begun as a demonstration evolved into a fascinating exchange of ideas. Hollywood technique meeting traditional fighting art. The gym had grown crowded now, with everyone watching the impromptu workshop. Phones were out, recording the session, but Keanu didn't mind. This wasn't about celebrity, it was about mutual respect between different disciplines. During a break, Somchai handed Keanu a bottle of water. You're movie fighting, he said thoughtfully. Not real fighting, but not fake either. Something in between. That's a good way to put it, Keanu agreed. We try to make it believable while still making it work for film. You know what most impressive in your John Wick? Somchai asked. What's that? Commitment, the trainer said simply. In fight scenes, you fully commit to each move. No hesitation. Like real fighter. He tapped his temple. This most important in real fighting too. Decisive mind. As the morning wore on, the dynamic between them continued to evolve. What had started as a confrontation had transformed into something like mutual respect. Keanu shared techniques he'd learned for the films, while Somchai offered insights from decades of real combat experience. The younger trainers were fully engaged now, asking questions about specific scenes from the movies, demonstrating their own variations on techniques. Even Mike had been pulled into a discussion with one of them, comparing notes on different training methods. Toward the end of the session, Somchai called for everyone's attention. He spoke briefly in Thai, causing a ripple of excitement through the gym. Then he turned to Keanu. Tomorrow we film fight scene for movie, he announced. My nephew, he make videos for internet. Want to make special one with you. Short scene? Like John Wick in Bangkok. Keanu looked surprised. That's very kind, but I'm not sure if I can. Good for Jim, Somchai continued. Good for you too. Real Muay Thai fighters in your scene. Something new for John Wick, yes? There was something unexpectedly earnest in the older man's suggestion. This wasn't just about publicity or exploiting a celebrity connection. It seemed like genuine enthusiasm for a creative collaboration. Mike leaned in. The director might actually love this. Could be great reference for the Thailand sequences we're shooting next week. Keanu considered it. His schedule was tight, but this unexpected connection felt important somehow. And from a professional standpoint, working with authentic fighters could bring something special to the film. Let me make some calls, he said finally. If we can work it out with the production schedule, I'd be honored. Somchai nodded, satisfied. As they prepared to leave, he approached Keanu one last time, speaking quietly so only Keanu could hear. Yesterday I think you just actor, playing tough guy. He shook his head. I was wrong. You warrior too. Different path, same spirit. He offered his hand and Keanu took it. What had begun as a clash of worlds was becoming an unexpected bridge between them. As they left the gym, stepping back into the now bustling Bangkok street, Mike glanced at Keanu. Well, that went better than expected. Yesterday he was trying to take your head off. Today he's your biggest fan. Keanu smiled slightly, touching his still tender leg. Not quite, but I think we found some common ground. So are we really coming? Back tomorrow for this video thing? Keanu watched the busy street for a moment, thinking. Yeah, he said finally. I think we are. Sometimes the most meaningful connections happened in the most unexpected places. And right now, in this small gym tucked away in a Bangkok side street, something genuine was taking shape. Something that transcended both Hollywood and traditional Muay Thai. Something real. The next morning arrived with unexpected commotion. Keanu and Mike pulled up to the gym in a production van rather than a taxi, accompanied by 2 camera operators, a sound technician, and Tom, the film's stunt coordinator. What had started as a simple training session had evolved into something much bigger after a late-night call with the director. He loved the idea, Tom explained as they unloaded equipment. Said it was exactly what we needed for authenticity. Plus, filming with real Muay Thai fighters in their actual gym. That's gold for the behind-the-scenes footage. Keanu nodded, helping carry a camera case. His bruised thigh still ached, but Somchai's special tiger balm had worked wonders. I just hope we're not imposing too much. This wasn't what they signed up for. Their concerns evaporated the moment they entered the gym. Somchai and his team had transformed the space. The usual training equipment had been pushed to the sides, creating an open area for filming. Someone had strung up additional lights, and the floor had been meticulously cleaned. A small crowd of fighters stood ready, dressed in traditional Muay Thai shorts, looking both nervous and excited. Somchai approached, wearing a clean shirt that still had creases from being newly unwrapped. "We ready?" he announced proudly. "Everything, like you need for movie." Behind him stood a young man in his 20s with fashionable glasses and a confident smile. "This is my nephew, Anurag," Somchai introduced. "He make videos, very popular on internet." Anurag stepped forward eagerly, shaking Keanu's hand. "Big honor, Mr. Reeves. I study film in university. Your John Wick movies, best action choreography ever made." "Thank you," Keanu replied, genuinely touched by the young man's enthusiasm. "But today we're here to learn from you guys. Real Muay Thai, not Hollywood stuff." Tom was already walking the space, planning camera angles with the operators. "We're thinking a simple setup." Keanu enters the gym looking for information, encounters resistance, has to fight his way through. Classic John Wick scenario, but with authentic Muay Thai elements. Somchai nodded approvingly. "In my gym, we can show real techniques, not fancy spinning kicks." He demonstrated a simple but devastating elbow strike, this more deadly than any flip. "That's exactly what we want," Tom agreed. "The rawness, the authenticity." They spent the next hour planning the sequence. Anurag proved surprisingly knowledgeable about film techniques, working smoothly with Tom to design shots that would showcase both the fighters and the space. Keanu worked with the fighters, choreographing movements that would look good on camera while incorporating genuine Muay Thai elements. "Remember," he told a young fighter who seemed nervous, "we're not actually fighting. It's like a dance. I move, you respond. We make it look real, but nobody gets hurt." Somchai watched with grudging approval. "Hollywood has tricks, but good tricks," he admitted. "Make fighting look real without danger." By mid-morning, they were ready for the first take. The gym had been transformed into a set, with key lighting highlighting the traditional elements, the ring, the shrine to boxing ancestors in the corner, the faded photos of champions on the walls. "Action," Tom called. Keanu entered the gym, moving with John Wick's distinctive, purposeful stride. His character was searching for information, following a lead that had brought him to this traditional training ground. The camera followed him as he approached Somchai, who played the role of the gym's suspicious owner. "I'm looking for someone," Keanu said, slipping fully into character. Somchai's face hardened. "No one here by that name." His delivery was stiff but convincing enough for the scene. "I was told he trains here," Keanu persisted. At a signal from Somchai, 3 fighters approached from different directions. The choreography they'd practiced began to unfold, a tense standoff that escalated into controlled violence. Keanu moved, with the fluid precision that had made John Wick famous while the Thai fighters brought their authentic techniques to the sequence. "Cut," Tom called after the first exchange. "That was great, but let's make the movements a bit sharper. Keanu, they're not pulling their techniques enough. Remember, these guys aren't stunt performers." They reset and tried again. Each take got better as everyone grew more comfortable. The Thai fighters, initially too cautious, began to find the right balance between showing their skills and maintaining safety. Keanu adapted his movements to showcase their techniques, making them look even more impressive on camera. During a break, Anurag approached Keanu with a suggestion. "In John Wick, you use environment, yes? Things around you become weapons." He gestured to the gym equipment. "Maybe use training tools as weapons? Armbands, gloves, ropes?" Keanu considered this, then nodded. "That's exactly what John would do. Let's incorporate that." They added a sequence where Keanu grabbed a pair of training pads to block strikes, then used jump ropes as improvised weapons. The additions brought a distinctly Muay Thai flavor to John Wick's usual fighting style. Somchai watched with growing interest, occasionally offering suggestions. "In real fight, we use clinch more," he demonstrated, grabbing one of his fighters in a tight hold before delivering controlled knee strikes. "Very effective, very painful." Tom immediately incorporated the technique into the sequence. "That's perfect. Raw, visceral, exactly what we need." As the morning wore on, what had begun as a simple filming session evolved into a true collaboration. The Thai fighters suggested techniques, Keanu adapted them to fit John Wick's style, and the filmmakers captured it all. Even the gym's unique atmosphere became part of the scene. The smell of liniment oil, the worn equipment, the faded photos of champions on the walls. During another break, Keanu noticed Somchai studying the monitors with a puzzled expression. "Something wrong?" he asked the older trainer. Somchai shook his head slowly. "Not wrong, just strange to see. On screen, everything looked different, more powerful." He pointed to a sequence they'd just filmed, where Keanu took down 2 attackers in quick succession. "In real life, I see you pull punches, move carefully. But there," he gestured to the monitor, "looks like real fighting." "That's the magic of film," Keanu explained. "Camera angles, editing, sound effects, they all come together to create something that feels real, even when it's carefully controlled, like magic trick." Somchai nodded thoughtfully. "But good trick." By early afternoon, they had captured most of what they needed. Tom reviewed the footage with growing excitement. "This is gold," he told Keanu. "The director's going to love it. It's exactly what the Thailand sequences needed. That authentic edge you can't fake." Anurag was equally enthusiastic, already planning how he would edit his version for social media. "With your permission, Mr. Reeves, I make special video for Jim. Show how Hollywood star train with real Thai fighters." "Of course," Keanu agreed. "Just check with the production team about what you can release before the film comes out." As they began packing up equipment, Somchai approached Keanu with an unexpected request. "In movie, John Wick have special move, yes? Something only he do?" Keanu thought for a moment. "There are a few signature techniques. The armbar into a headshot is probably the most recognizable." "You teach me?" Somchai asked, his expression serious. "I teach you Muay Thai. You teach me John Wick." There was something touching about the request. This proud traditional fighter who had initially dismissed Hollywood techniques now wanting to learn them. It represented a bridge between their worlds. "I'd be honored," Keanu replied. They moved to an open area and Keanu broke down one of John Wick's signature combinations, a grapple that transitioned into a precise strike. Somchai followed with surprising adaptability, his lifetime of training, allowing him to quickly grasp the mechanics. "In real fight, maybe not practical," Somchai admitted after successfully executing the move. "But look good, feel good too." "That's sometimes the point," Keanu smiled. "It's about the story you're telling with your body." The gym had grown crowded again. Word had spread about the filming, and students had arrived early for their afternoon sessions, eager to catch a glimpse of the action. They watched in fascinated silence as their revered teacher and the Hollywood star exchanged techniques. As the production team finished packing, Tom approached Keanu with a suggestion. The director had an idea. He wants to offer Somchai and some of his fighters roles in the film. Small parts but real screen time. Authentic fighters for the Bangkok sequence. Keanu nodded approvingly. They'd be perfect. Let me talk to him. He found Somchai supervising the rearrangement of the gym equipment, barking orders to his students as they moved heavy bags back into position. Somchai, Keanu began. The film's director was impressed with what we shot today. He'd like to offer you and some of your fighters small roles in the movie. The real thing, not just background work. The older trainer paused, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Keanu thought he might refuse. This proud traditionalist might see it as selling out. What kind of roles? Somchai asked finally. Fighters. Being yourselves, essentially. Using real Muay Thai in the Bangkok scenes. It would bring authenticity we couldn't get any other way. Somchai was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked around his gym, at the worn equipment, the faded photos, the eager young fighters watching them. Movie money good? He asked bluntly. Keanu smiled. Yes, very good. Gym need new roof, new bags. Somchai gestured upward, where water stains marked the ceiling. Young fighters need support for competitions. The film would take care of that, Keanu assured him. And it would bring attention to your gym, your fighters, your teaching. Somchai nodded slowly, coming to a decision. We do it, but one condition. What's that? No spinning kicks, Somchai stated firmly. No flying punches. Real Muay Thai only. Keanu laughed. I think the director will agree to that. As they prepared to leave, the gym had transformed back to its original state, a working training center rather than a film set. But something had changed. The barrier between the Hollywood world and this traditional space had dissolved, replaced by mutual respect. An understanding Anurag approached with his phone, asking for a photo with Keanu. For gym wall, he explained, next to champions. As they posed together, Keanu, Somchai, and the young fighters, Mike leaned in to whisper to Keanu. Not bad for a training session that started with that old guy trying to kick your head off. Keanu smiled, looking around at the gym that had initially seemed so foreign but now felt somehow familiar. Sometimes the best connections start with a misunderstanding. Somchai, overhearing, nodded in agreement. In fighting, in life, same lesson. Respect earned, not given. He clasped Keanu's hand firmly. You earn. As they finally left the gym, stepping back into the humid Bangkok afternoon, Keanu felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond the successful filming. What had begun as a simple training visit had evolved into something more meaningful. A genuine exchange between different worlds that had more in common than either had initially realized. And somewhere in that exchange was the heart of what made John Wick work, the commitment to authenticity that transcended the line between performance and reality. 6 months later, the Grand Theater in Bangkok's newest luxury mall buzzed with excitement. Red carpet had been rolled out. Lights flashed as photographers jostled for position, and fans lined the barriers hoping for a glimpse of the stars. The Thai premiere of John Wick Chapter 5 had brought Hollywood glamour to the heart of the city. Somchai stood awkwardly at the edge of the chaos, tugging at the collar of his new suit. He had never worn one before, and found the stiff fabric uncomfortable compared to his usual training clothes. Next to him, his nephew Anurag couldn't stop grinning, his camera in hand as he documented everything for the gym's social media accounts. Uncle, stop fidgeting, Anurag whispered. You look like a fighter, not a criminal. Somchai grunted. Feel like criminal in this monkey suit. But despite his complaints, there was a glint of pride in his eyes. After 50 years devoted to Muay Thai fighting and then training fighters in his modest gym, he was about to see himself on the big screen. Behind them stood 5 of his best fighters, all similarly dressed in new suits, looking both uncomfortable and thrilled. They had spent 2 weeks on the film set, working as both actors and fight choreographers. What had begun as a chance encounter at their gym had evolved into something none of them had expected. A sleek black car pulled up to the entrance, and the crowd's excitement surged. Keanu Reeves stepped out, elegant in a tailored suit, looking every bit the movie star. But instead of immediately walking the red carpet, he scanned the crowd until he spotted Somchai and his team. "There they are," he said to the film's director, who nodded and followed as Keanu made his way directly to the group of Thai fighters. "Somchai," Keanu greeted warmly, clasping the older man's hand. "You made it." "Say I come, so I come," Somchai replied with his characteristic directness. "Not break promise." Keanu smiled. "The suit looks good on you." Somchai tugged at his collar again. "Feel strange. Not made for fighting?" "Neither is mine," Keanu confided. "But John Wick manages somehow." The director joined them, shaking hands with each fighter. "I wanted to thank you all personally before the premiere. What you brought to the film was beyond our expectations. The authenticity, the energy. It transformed the entire Bangkok sequence. Photographers had noticed the exchange and were now capturing the moment. The Hollywood star and director chatting casually with the group of Thai fighters. Flashbulbs popped around them. "Come," Keanu said, gesturing toward the red carpet. "Walk in with us." Somchai looked surprised. "We just small part in movie. Background people." "Not background," the director corrected. "You're part of the John Wick world now. The audience is going to remember the Muay Thai gym sequence. Trust me." Somewhat reluctantly, Somchai and his fighters joined the film's main cast on the red carpet. Cameras flashed and reporters called out questions. Most were directed at Keanu and the other stars, but a few Thai journalists recognized Somchai. "Master Somchai, how did it feel to fight John Wick in the movie?" The old trainer squared his shoulders, finding his confidence. "John Wick, good fighter for movie man." The crowd laughed appreciatively. Inside the theater, Somchai and his team were seated in a prime section, not far from the main cast. The lights dimmed, and the film began. For the first hour, they watched with growing anticipation, waiting for their scene. Then, as John Wick's quest for vengeance brought him to Bangkok, Somchai sat up straighter. The familiar streets of their neighborhood appeared on screen, and then, there it was. Their gym, transformed by cinematography into a moody, atmospheric fighting ground, but still recognizably the place where they trained every day. The scene began with John Wick entering the gym, seeking information. Somchai appeared, his weathered face filling the massive screen. There was an audible murmur of excitement from the Thai audience members who recognized the famous local trainer. "I'm looking for someone," John Wick said in the film. On screen, Somchai's face hardened into a suspicious glare. "No one here by that name." His delivery, which had seemed stiff during filming, came across as perfectly menacing in the finished scene. What followed was 3 minutes of spectacular fighting, as John Wick faced off against the gym's fighters. But unlike many action sequences in Hollywood films, this one had a distinctly different flavor. The Muay Thai techniques were authentic, brutal in their efficiency rather than flashy. John Wick's usual fighting style had been adapted to incorporate elements of the Thai martial art, creating something new and compelling. Somchai watched, transfixed as the sequence built to its climax. The camera work, the editing, the sound, everything elevated what they had filmed that day into something extraordinary. When John Wick finally cornered Somchai's character and demanded information, the theater was silent, fully engaged in the EI story. "You fight well," Somchai's character said on screen, bleeding but unbowed. "Like man who trained in sacred arts." It was a line they had improvised during filming, one that captured the essence of their real-life encounter. Somchai felt a strange sense of déjà vu, watching this dramatized version of what had actually happened between them. The scene ended with an uneasy truce, John Wick gaining the information he needed while earning the respect of the gym's fighters. As the film moved on to its next sequence, Somchai felt Anurag grip his arm in excitement. "Uncle, you were amazing," he whispered. For the rest of the film, Somchai watched with new appreciation. He had initially dismissed action movies as fake, all style and no substance, but seeing the craftsmanship up close, both during filming and now on screen, had changed his perspective. There was artistry here, different from, but not entirely. Unlike the discipline and precision of Muay Thai, after the film ended and the credits rolled, a special featurette began. John Wick, the heart of the fight. It was a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film, with particular focus on the incorporation of authentic fighting styles from around the world. To Somchai's surprise, his gym featured prominently. There was footage of Keanu training with him, interviews with the fighters, and a special section on how the collaboration had influenced the film's fighting style. Somchai even appeared in a sit-down interview that he had forgotten about, discussing the philosophy behind Muay Thai. True fighting not about looking good, he said on screen, about effectiveness, about heart. John Wick understand this. That why his fighting look real. When the lights came up, there was enthusiastic applause. As people began to file out for the after-party, Somchai found himself surrounded by Thai celebrities, film critics, and martial arts enthusiasts, all wanting to talk about his contribution to the film. Later, at the lavish after-party in a rooftop venue overlooking the city, Keanu found Somchai standing alone on the terrace away from the crowds. Not enjoying the party? Keanu asked, joining him at the railing. Somchai shrugged. Too many people, too much talk. He looked out at the city lights. Film good, though. Fighting look real. That's because of you and your fighters, Keanu said. You brought something authentic to it that we couldn't have created otherwise. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, looking out at the Bangkok skyline. Gym different now, Somchai said finally. Since movie people come, more students, more attention. Is that a good thing? Somchai considered the question. Yes and no. Good for business. New roof, new equipment. He tapped his chest. But must keep heart same. Not become tourist show. Keanu nodded, understanding. That's always the challenge. Success changes things. The trick is to hold on to what matters while letting go of what doesn't. Wise words for movie man, Somchai said with a small smile. The door to the terrace opened and one of the producers appeared. Keanu, they're asking for you for the photos. Be right there, Keanu replied. Before leaving, he turned back to Somchai. I have something for you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn pencil, a prop from the film. The famous pencil, he said with a slight smile, offering it to Somchai. A reminder that sometimes the simplest tools can be the most effective, in the right hands. Somchai took it, turning the pencil over in his calloused fingers. He understood the reference to the film's famous scene, but also the deeper meaning, a bridge between their two worlds. Next time you in Bangkok, Somchai said, tucking the pencil carefully into his pocket. Come to gym. No cameras, no movie people, just training. I'd like that, Keanu replied sincerely. As Keanu returned to the party, Somchai remained on the terrace a moment longer. 6 months ago, he had dismissed a visitor to his gym as just another soft Westerner playing at being a fighter. He had been wrong. Not just about Keanu, but about the dedication and craft that went into creating something like John Wick. Inside, he could see Anurag showing something on his phone to a group of impressed party guests, probably footage from the gym. His fighters were scattered throughout the room, soaking in their moment of fame. The film had changed things for all of them, opening doors that had previously seemed firmly closed. But as Somchai fingered the pencil in his pocket, he knew that the most valuable thing to come from this strange encounter wasn't fame or money. It was the reminder that respect transcends boundaries, between cultures, between traditions, between the world of make-believe and the world of real fighting. In the end, whether on a movie set or in a fighting ring, it came down to the same essential truth: commitment to the craft, respect for tradition while embracing innovation, and the willingness to learn from unexpected teachers. Somchai took one last look at the glittering city below, then turned and walked back into the party, ready to embrace whatever came next. After all, as both John Wick and every fighter knew, the most important battles were the ones you chose for yourself.